Hello, everyone, and welcome in the year 2020.
Yep.
My name is Bart,
I'm Jakub.
and we're delighted today to provide you a live webinar on visually enhanced communication. And we'll try to answer two questions. Why visuals in the first place, and how to use them. Exciting, huh?
Oh, yes, it is. Well, it's a very important topic for us since Explain Everything is, well, mainly a visual tool, although it can go any way you want. But today's topic is about how the visuals can help you and your students learn better. Just let's put it simply like that, right?
Yeah. And there are so many ways. We're delighted to share some of examples with you today. And we're really excited to kick off this year with this webinar. It's quite special for us as we were diligently looking for interesting examples, new examples for you. There are some of you that are with us, well, not for the first time. I want to welcome Karl-Heinz.
Oh, bro.
It's great to see you on the webinar. And before we begin, few housekeeping items. You're encouraged to ask questions. This is a live webinar. This is for you. We're here to explain everything. So you can either join this session. This is a live session. I'll put on the code shortly so you can connect using your Explain Everything, or you can ask us using chat or Q&A within Zoom, right? So that's the connection code, PGFL. So if you have Explain Everything installed on your device, you can just put it, you can just put the code inside the join window, or if you're using browser, let's say if you want to connect using browser, not Explain Everything app, it's okay to do that. Just use this link. And we won't be offended if you'll mess around with content. We have quite a bit of content on this canvas. It's just one slide that we'll use to explain everything.
All right, I'll post the link to the chat as well, so you can just click on it and join if you want. But if you want to follow Bartosz, because it's easy to explore the project while you're in it, but if you want to follow Bartosz, just you can stay in Zoom and just watch the webinar and how Bart does everything there.
What I do is I actually broadcast my screen. So you'll see my actions, buttons that I use, tools that I use throughout the entire webinar. So why visuals? Why visuals? And you know, we're mostly tool used by educators. That's why we'll try to keep it and look at the process of using visuals from the perspective of teachers, from the perspective of learners. And that's why we see it as a great tool to transform information into active knowledge. Explain Everything, it's not just a kind of like a visual tool out of nowhere without any deeper foundation. Explain Everything is actually quite a bit. It allows you to use something we call non-linguistic representations, that is drawing, graphics, sketches, to inspire higher order thinking. What does it mean is that you can communicate in a more rich way when you try to use visuals together, let's say with voice, with text, and by this strengthen your message or information that you want to put out there. And by that, you can integrate modalities. That is, this is a great tool to mix visual with spatial, the location of objects, verbal, because you can record audio as well, and data, because you can put on the canvas any content you want, including graphs or charts. It's something that helps with metacognition of what do we mean by that. There's this theory that says that actually we think in a very visual way because the concepts kind of like group together, cluster together, join in our heads, And using visual tools, it's a bridge between our thinking and the medium of the visual. So this is something that is actually directly linked to the way we think. And of course, Explain Everything is also a platform for formative assessment. That is a platform where you can exchange information between student and teacher, and by understanding thinking on students, and react and repurpose method of providing information for the best purpose. Is that the good way to put it?
Oh yeah, I was looking for some. Sorry, I wasn't there.
No, the formative assessment.
Oh, the formative assessment. Yeah. Well, I'm sorry, but yeah, I lost.
I was just mentioning that we're the good
yeah.
platform for that because of this back and forth between student and teacher.
Yeah.
And repurposing media in order to arrive at a good learning result.
Well, it's all about like owning your learning, right? That's what formative assessment is in an essence, right?
Yes.
If I wanted to put it simply, right? So Explain Everything allows that, just because you have so many ways of actually keeping track of where you are and how you arrived at a certain conclusion or a certain point, right? So that's why recording and creating videos is so essential in this sort of approach to learning.
Yes.
Because you create all those artifacts of learning with Explain Everything, and that will help you grasp the level that you're at, right? You can do all sorts of stuff with Explain Everything in terms of formative assessment. I guess that would be a great topic for a much broader webinar. We've covered that to some extent already, but
we did, yeah.
I think that there's a lot of examples that we could provide. So that's
tons of examples. I mean, we counted. We actually provided 30 webinars, 31 last year. That's quite a bit, yet we couldn't expand on everything we would want to show. So there's a space, as you said, to show you some more. But the baseline, the base message is that this is a tool to create rich content and inspire higher order thinking and express in a way that you want to express, because everyone has his or her own style. Explain Everything allows for different modes of explaining, and by this, being efficient in sharing your message. So what we're sharing here is actually something that, if you want to deep further within theory of visual tools, there's a great resource for that. We will put links, I believe, to the books and articles we're sharing with you today. So I encourage you to look into this one. This is Visual Tools for Transforming Information into Knowledge. That was quite interesting for us when we looked into it. And here's a quote from the book. We'll share links to those materials after the webinar, right?
Oh yeah, well, by the way, because we didn't mention that, for those of you who haven't participated in Explain Everything webinar yet, the webinar is recorded, and you will get a recording, the video after the webinar the next day. So I'll just upload it to YouTube, where you will be able to rewatch that and revisit. And so we'll include all those things too, along with the project. So yeah. Meanwhile, I'll post the link to those books in the chat as well.
So this is a theory part, okay? But let's look from the perspective of, from the practical standpoint. What does it actually mean? You know that the image is worth 1,000 words. This is a well-known saying dated back to Aristotle. And I can actually illustrate what we mean when we say, yeah, we believe that's actually true, by showing you one example. And this is a map that shows the Napoleon Bonaparte campaign to Russia and back in numbers of soldiers. And this is a visual that was quite inspiring for me because, you know, when I remember my school days when you've learned about this campaign. It took me like 3 lessons in order to get the essence of it, what actually happened, what was the reason for the failure, and, you know, the trouble they had along the way. Yet 3 lessons, this is a lot to take in when you listen to it, just listen to teacher. If I would be supplied with a visual like this that shows number of men, troop size, like here, when they began, there were over 400,000 soldiers, and when they came to Moscow, there were just 100,000 left. And when they came back, out of those that were in Moscow, you have just 4,000 soldiers. This is, with one picture, it tells you a lot, much more than I could take in when just listening to, you know, the teacher presenting us the situation. So for me, this kind of material is a great learning experience. I don't know about others, but there's a saying, not everyone is a visual learner. I would disagree. I believe the tools like this are vehicle for thoughts that are easier to comprehend for majority of us. Would you agree with that?
Well, yes. Well, there's a certain name for this. Like, I didn't know the exact. Well, I don't remember the name, but when you cannot visualize certain things in your head, that means you have this sort of, you know, like the difference. You know, I'm not sure how it's named, but yeah. We've researched that, but yeah, usually I guess so. I mean, it all depends on how on the context of learning, but generally this gives you like immediate idea behind what happened, right?
Yes.
So that's I guess that's a very interesting entry point for the whole story behind it, right?
Yeah.
So later on you can always get back to that and just, oh, right, so that's why this happened and that happened and how it actually what's the difference, right? In visual, when it's easier to comprehend just those differences rather than saying 1% go back. So okay, 1%, how much is that, right?
Yeah.
So yeah. But you can see the difference immediately here, which is very practical.
And you see what happened. There's a time and dimension to it. There's a graph that shows you the temperature that they struggled with, right? There are different sub-campaigns of this one. Well, with one picture, there's a lot to take in. And what we want to show you by showing just this example is that those things, when this diagram was created 150 years ago, it must have been problematic on paper, but with Explain Everything, it's super simple to do so. I'll just show you 2 things just to keep, also just to highlight the practical aspect of using digital tools now. So if you would want to create a diagram like this, well, you just need one tool, that is Explain Everything. I'll just show you how to take the color from the graph. If, let's say, I want to use the same color, showing number of troops, let's say. So I'm using color picker now. As you see, we have a custom color palette here. So I just picked the color from this graph just to use the same one. And if I use the draw tool, I can create segments, fill them with color, using the fill tool, let's say, or I can just close the drawings and by this, why? Oh, sorry, my mistake. The fill color should be the same. So I can continue to draw elements and just fill them with color like that. And by this, quickly arrive at similar outcome. I'm not going to get into details, just to show you there are tools embedded in this whiteboard that would allow you to create something similar in seconds. And if you think about this temperature graph, well, straight lines, obviously it's difficult to create in whiteboards if you have just a pen or finger, but Explain Everything comes supplied also with the ruler, and I'll show you this. So here you choose the pen type, right? That's the pencil.
Yep.
I was using a marker, but you also have a ruler that you can use to create with black color straight lines for your graph, for your temperature graph, like this. So I'm using, as you see, pen to draw those lines and my finger to move ruler around. So if I want, now those lines, I could do them easily as that. And as you see, it takes just seconds to create something similar. Not going, as again, I'm not going to dig into details, but you have the tools that you need in order to recreate similar graph for your content, the content of your lesson. But that's just an illustration. To answer properly question why, we want to show you also one thing more. If you watch this webinar from a perspective of a teacher, I'm sure you're familiar with Bloom's taxonomy. This is like a frame of reference for us when you think about, how to position objectives, learning objectives, and we actually take also from this definition of knowledge per se. So there are 6 levels of hierarchy of the learning objectives according to Bloom's taxonomy. They are, and you can see them here: knowledge, comprehension, application, analysis, synthesis, and evaluation. And what is marked here on Bloom's taxonomy diagram are elements that can be supported with the tool, such as explain everything. And as you see, we're mostly within this realm of knowledge and comprehension. By this, what we're saying is this is a great tool to label, define, recognize, state, locate elements of information that together can create a material, a piece of knowledge or information that you want to turn into knowledge by using, let's say, videos. We're not going to cover videos today, but we had quite interesting webinars on video creations with Explain Everything. You can look into that if you're interested in creating videos. Or if you think of comprehension, because laying out facts, this is just information. But if you think about comprehending what is there, it's also what is useful is recording speech, cartoons, storytelling, diagrams. That's all you can do with Explain Everything. By summarizing, distinguishing, expressing, illustrating, extending, giving examples, rewriting, all those means are there. So I hope we answered question why. So let us dive into how, shall we?
Oh, yes.
Unless there are any questions, we can...
Not yet.
Okay,
not yet.
Good.
But feel free.
Sure.
If you if we go too fast, or you want to explore some of the features that we covered here, like Bart did, just let us know, and we'll just rerun the thing.
Is the thing, sometimes we are too fast. Sorry for that, I apologize for that. It's just the time constraint. We want to keep it interesting also for those that are advanced users of Explain Everything. But there are also other sessions that we strictly try to express and illustrate the basics. But if there's something we should illustrate, we can do this. This is a live session, so you can ask us a question and we'll be happy to respond. So when using webinars, when using whiteboard, you can use visual methods that we are going to cover in a moment. But what are the situations where you can use them? And here we listed 4 actually. When using tablets, because Explain Everything was created for tablets, you can use this on a computer, but it makes sense to use it on a digital multi-touch device such as Android, Google Chrome, or Apple iPad. And those are very handy devices supplied with pen or stylus. You can do marvelous things. You can actually replace paper or flip chart, or let's say presenting applications such as PowerPoint with projector. by just using whiteboard on a tablet in a situation like here you have a discussion. So having this device with you, you can initiate this discussion, and instead of using paper, using whiteboard. But you can present, as I mentioned, by connecting to screen or using projector, where you can actually present in a similar way that I do today. Today's meeting is more over distance. That's why I would call this online meeting, but it's also webinars, right? But also, there's fourth way you can brainstorm. There are some of you connected to us on this call. There are actually 5 participants altogether, so we could actually initiate the brainstorm. So I encourage you also to note on the materials that we're showing today, just to express how dynamic it can be when you're using whiteboard. This is not just showing an image and everyone else is watching. We can actually work together as we have the same set of tools. Yep. So those are the situations. But the good question is, what kind of visual tools we can use when we try to enhance the communication, right? And what we did for today, we were trying to list at most 3 different illustrations of 2 types of visual tools. Those that help us think inside of the box, and those that are useful when you try to support thinking outside of the box. So which should come first, Kuba?
Well, let's start with the structure, because I think the non-structures are like,
the holy grail.
They are, go beyond expectations, I guess. Because with structures, we usually think when we prepare something or try to, approach a topic, usually you want to have a structure because it kind of makes you feel safe, but it's not the only way, right? If you want to arrive at a structure that you want to feel comfortable with, you kind of need to start without it, right? So So let's show how the structure works, but then let's show how to arrive at it.
Absolutely. We can even mention that for those that are diligent about using structure, not using structure, and if you have question marks in your head, if you think about what is better in which situation, there's actually a quite interesting piece of research done by Switzerland in St. Gallen by the team from University of St. Gallen, as I mentioned, where they tried to answer the question, is it better to use blank canvas or light structure or strict template in order to... What happened?
Sorry.
We have audio problem. Is it gone now?
Maybe it's this. No.
Okay, but I'm sure you can hear us fine now, right?
1 sec. I'll confirm that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. So they tried to answer the question, and they tried to quantify the result. Is it better to use structured approach or just blank canvas when thinking through problems? This is a quite interesting piece of research because they tried those 3 situations: no structure at all, just the grid, or concrete template to direct exchange between participants. And what they write us was that for them, in the situation where brainstorming was involved, the light structure was best. We'll put a link to this piece of research as it might apply to some situations that you're encountering. But as you mentioned, we'll start with those situations where we actually need some structure to direct conversation. And we have 3 situations when thinking inside of the box is concerned. Clustering, that is using clusters mind mapping and using graphic organizers. So maybe clustering first, right? As it's the skill that might be a good starting point in building fluency in visuals. So with clusters, you can easily, using whiteboards such as Explain Everything, create comparisons by providing a simple structure. This structure here, in comparison between American and Polish culture, was created by doing just two circles, right, that are underneath those text objects and graphical objects. And by this, we can now start a discussion. What are the differences? So Halloween and All Saints Day, this is one of the differences. Christmas, it's mostly similar between both cultures. Yeah. What different differences do you see?
Well, the fun part about the discussion, right, like that, is that Halloween slowly gets in the middle, right, in Poland, right, because it started being popular recently. So see, we can have a discussion right now like that. So it's a pretty interesting thing. When, as you see, well, because if we wanted to dive deeper, we would have to, find all the sources and so on and so forth. But on the surface level, yeah, it's becoming more and more popular. Halloween is becoming more and popular in Poland, although it didn't start here, right? But yeah. So that's very interesting. What else? There are a couple of differences, of course, but But we don't want to get too political, I guess.
No, we don't. But if you keep it on the tool level, all you need to do in order to facilitate such discussion is to create a text object. I'll show you how. You just press this button here, and you create text object that you can move around. And this text object, as you see, has a white background. You can choose the background here. And by this, create labels or tags, elements, even graphical elements. This one contains a graphic that I attached to the text label so I can move both together. And when having a discussion with your class or with your colleagues, when you try to do the similar exercise, you can just move those around across the screen in order to arrive at the
can we show how to join the picture and the text together?
Oh, sure, yeah. So let's say those are disconnected, right? I just created Halloween and I imported this graphic. So you can put in graphic to the whiteboard easily by dragging graphic from, let's say, imagesgoogle.com, or you can use clipboards. We have clipboards here. And within clipboards, we have different graphics. I don't think we have pumpkin. That one was taken from a different source. But let's say we want to add bananas here, right? Yeah. You can take the graphic and using Inspector tool, select both objects and group them together like that. And by this, when dragging them with your finger, they will move together. It's important just to realize when you're creating such clusters, and if you want to have a background, let's say I'll create some examples for you. Create them first. Let's say those are going to be my clusters. I'll keep it, let's say, red, the border strong red, and I'll make the border thicker, right? I can create, let's say, 3 clusters like that. I can label them as I did with this cultural comparison, set 1, set 2, set 3, and keep them underneath your text objects. So if you create a new object, it will automatically be on top, and you can remove transparency just like that. Because if you're using those clusters here and they would be, let's say, above the text object, there will be no possibility of moving the text object. I'll show you this by moving the text object to the back. Now it's on the back, and as you see, by touching this very space where the text object is positioned, I'm actually moving now my background, my cluster. So in order to avoid that, you can take those objects and send them to the back or set them here as background, right? And if you do this, those objects will be underneath any other objects that you have on the canvas, so your work with clusters will be easier.
Right. Sorry, I just got
No
distracted
problem.
again. So many technical aspects.
Yes.
Having a webinar, yeah.
So that's clustering for you. The other way you can use whiteboards when doing inside of the box thinking, where you actually need a bit of a structure, is mind mapping. And I must admit, whiteboard explain everything is not a tool specifically for mind mapping. You might want to use the tools that are created just for mind mapping, but it's still a very handy tool to learn the basics of mind mapping or annotating mind maps, or even taking content in from mind mapping tools to explain everything. So let me show you how we did this mind map. It was actually something that we imported from this very application. This is MindNote. So let me show you how easy it is if you want to share content between whiteboards, that is on the left side now, and mind mapping tool that you see on the right side. So this is a piece of content that I took in to the whiteboard. Now I want to take those operas by Puccini, right? If you share an object, some applications such as this, they allow you to transport image using transparent background. And this is a great thing to do because when you send it to the Explain Everything, as you see, Explain Everything now sees this graphic. I can just select what part of the mind map, because there were two mind maps on this very picture. I just want to have one. And I can import this without any background, as you see. However, there are some applications, let's say you're using mind mapping application that does not allow you to export content without background. You're still good with Explain Everything, because I'll show you one trick. Let's say I want to import this very mind map again without even exporting it from MindNote. I can create a screenshot. That's a hack, right?
Yeah.
I can create a screenshot. And iOS allows you to do that. On the different devices, it's a different combination of keys. I'm using third generation of iPad. That's why I just used power button and the volume up button together in order to make a screenshot. And that's the screenshot. I'm in the system editor. I can select a piece of the mind map that I need, save it to photos, and while importing to Explain Everything, we allow you to remove background. So let me show you all photos. Now I see my mind map together with a background, but we have this nice background removal tool, and I can now tap on the color of the background, and as you see, by this I'm turning contents into, like, let's say, contents without the background, with transparent background. So the result is actually very similar, right? And then you can use Explain Everything to dive into discussion, annotate, extend, and discuss.
Yep. Yeah. First, we don't really rehearse those webinars very much. So most of the things that Bart does are, they are very surprising to me as well, which is, a great experience for me too. But yeah. These sorts of tricks are really cool with Explain Everything, and it's and Bart's Scans is really fast, and it's a pleasure to watch how he does all this. So yeah.
If it's too fast, sorry for that. It's just
no. I mean, it was pretty clear for me. So I guess if you find it too fast, just let us know. But yeah. But you can see how if you're proficient and explain everything. It just how easy and quick it is to do this sort of stuff. Import and just find a way to make it as you wish.
This is fantastic if you think about it, how easily you can arrive at a good, visually appealing result by using Explain Everything with different apps that allows you, let's say, for mind mapping. Because to be honest, you can recreate such a mind map also within Explain Everything, but it would not have this capacity that the mind mapping apps allows you to, let's say, reposition those branches. But we know that some of you are teaching using mind maps, using Explain Everything, and we can show you just the basics related to that. So let's say we're creating a mind map here. You can do this.
Oh, by the way, I mean, in terms of like mind map software and so on, I think like drawing your mind map has a similar appeal to creating your own sketch notes, because like if you use someone else's sketch notes, it doesn't have the same effect, I guess. And I think it's a similar thing with like drawing your own mind map and letting something else do your mind map, right? So reposition. Yes. I mean, it's very convenient to have all those connectors flow as you move them, but it has, as with drawing or as with writing with your hand, it has the same. Actually, you need to spend a little bit more time on thinking how you actually want to do it, which engages you a little bit more.
That's true. That's true. Although in the future, it might be that we'll arrive at the solution to provide you the flexibility of rearranging branches, as we have this in one of the previous apps. So this is not a new thing for us. But for the time being, mind maps are great, and Explain Everything is a great tool to talk about mind maps and discuss the contents of any mind map that you create outside of Explain Everything as well. The third tool, graphical tool that we want to show you, are graphic organizers that are a way to represent content, concepts, or knowledge by incorporating different elements, different visuals, textual elements, to show relations, to show patterns that provide more rich illustration of the knowledge behind. And the example of that I have now on the screen is a graphic organizer. We call it a book poster, created out of contents of Rashawn's, our co-founder book, Make Yourself Clear by Rashawn Richards and Stephen Valentine. So when reading book, and this is something also we covered one of the webinars, you might want to rearrange the content of the book in order to increase comprehension by taking those elements of the work that are needed to understand and comprehend and memorize, and by using those elements of visual structure, like here, or color coding chapters, like with this green color or with this red color here, you can actually have a quite rich representation of the content of the book that is different than just a chapter division. But this is an example of inside-of-the-box thinking, because we know what the content is. We want to show the relations. We want to show the structure. This is not exploration of the uncharted waters. This is a more rich illustration of what is already within the book or on the mind map, or what should be positioned where on such cluster as in this first example. The more, at least for me, challenging category of visual tools are those that help you to think outside of the box.
Oh, yes.
And to be honest, this is the starting point for Explain Everything. When we were creating this tool, we always want to create a tool set that helps to fuel this type of thinking. We were inspired by many things. Some of them were sketches created by those brave ones that actually pushed civilization forward. These are the examples of so-called heuristic sketches by, here you have Freud. He was using those when developing his theory. Leonardo da Vinci. Here you have Wright brothers sketches when they were working on the wind tunnel. And as you see, the common feature here is that they had no desire for structure. They wanted to have a medium and express their thoughts and link their thoughts and create concepts using a blank canvas. And that's basically what you start with when you use whiteboard, right?
Mm-hmm. Or like a blank piece of paper, but yeah, you're just, there's you and there's this empty space which you try to fill. And then the same is with writing and any other creative, all this, or like sculptures will go the same way. You just look at the block of stone and you think, well, what's inside of it, right? So it's kind of like that.
Yeah, but in this very example, you cannot make a mistake. But we've explained everything with the whiteboard. You can, because you can reposition the content, right?
Yeah.
On a paper, if you create something, it's just fixed. You can remove it if you have a removal tools, but it's not easy to reposition it. And we've explained everything, all of those elements that you create, and let's say, this is my sketch, and this is the other sketch that I did, and I want to reposition them, I can. Right? So that's the nice feature that is provided by the digital nature of this medium, that you can reposition those elements and work on the visual structure later on.
Yeah, without any like special skills, right? You just drag them. That's all you do. And you don't have to be a designer or, have the knowledge of those tools like that require you to know how things, how they are complicated and so on and so forth. I mean, of course, those kind of skills are useful, but in direct conversation like we have, like in our office when we want to explain something, it just it makes it so much easier to be able to move things around or expand your canvas, and just continue on exploring this theme, this topic, right? That you're talking about.
So that's the second feature. You don't have the limits of let's say paper size, or the medium you're using. If it's a flip chart, it also comes with limits. Here you don't have those limits, and you can go all the way up or dive down to the details of those sketches. Oh, nice details, huh?
Yeah.
Very elaborate in order to expand concepts. So this is also something that is quite profound, yet not very much explored by different tools other than graphical tools. Yet graphical tools are not specifically for communicating.
Yeah, they want you to arrive at a certain point where things are set up as they should be. This is not it, right? This is the process tool. I like to think about explain everything in those terms, like a process tool where you, well, the interactive nature, of course, lets you create the structure, but this is like, you have to start somewhere. You want to arrive at a certain thing, but then the flexibility of it, the interactivity and the easiness of use lets you just be a little bit more efficient at communicating certain things.
Yeah. And when thinking outside of the box, you usually start with something that is not yet ready. It's just half-baked. This is kind of like a tool to get your preliminary thoughts out of your head, put on the canvas, explore, visually explore, improve upon, maybe act upon later, right?
Yeah.
But this is just this first step, and as you mentioned, this is quite important. You can make mistakes. You can remove those elements that, let's say, you made a mistake with. Let's say I want to remove this part. That's okay. You can do this and then do something else. Here, it's still the same object, yet now improved or changed.
Yep.
Right? So this flexibility makes whiteboard a great tool for similar sketches. That's one of the three examples we have for thinking outside of the box. The other one, the other two are here. So one of them is, trying to use this metaphor of map. If you're trying to get across a territory, it's good to have a map, right? You're thinking of concepts. Especially if you're thinking about something new, it's also a map could be useful to explore those uncharted waters, right? And for that, mindscapes exist. These are the graphics that are created to, let's say, explore, as on this example, educational technology horizon. This is a story map created by team behind David Sibbett. For one of their clients, they have many examples on their website. They are specialists in doing similar visuals, where, as you see, drawings are mixed with text objects, and out of discussion, this picture is composed out of the workshop or group work that they facilitate together with client. And if you think about the process of doing that, is usually in the past, the process was that there was a team assembling those thoughts and illustrator working on a piece of paper or giant wall, let's say, drawing those things. And yet with whiteboards, you're not required to have those graphical skills such as Illustrator, because you can put in any visuals inside, any drawings, or you can use clip art, as we mentioned before, with ready-made graphics if you need them. So this is also an advantage. And if you combine this advantage of using ready-made elements with ease of creating graphical and textual components and move them together, so like in this example, if I want to make this bubble, then I'll just make a rough sketch. You can do it easily, right? So this is a new element. I can fill it with text, so I'll do the text object. It should be without background. I'll take smaller font. There's my text, right? It's a very profound, I know. I'll put it here. I can join those two, and let's say we have a group discussion about the landscape here. You can move them around, rearrange them, do the synthesis as they did here on the margin, right? Easy, and assemble visuals as they did using just a whiteboard. And then you can export it as a graphic to print or, let's say, share. I saw many strategies illustrated using visuals, as they are very powerful in order to push ideas. And this is something that David Sibbett quite often mentions during his talks or conversations that he shares over podcasts. Mm-hmm. So with digital tools such as this, it's easy to arrive at mix of different elements and do mistakes in a way, yes, but then improve them as you go. So you don't have to think upfront about the structure as they do when doing this on paper, let's say, because you can rearrange elements and improve the contents as you go.
Right. So like you say, the main difference between this product and the thing that you would create and explain everything is that you can allow yourself for exploration, right?
Yes.
So that's why it's unstructured. That's why it's outside of the box.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Makes sense. Yeah.
Because you're exploring new terrain. You don't know what you'll arrive at. And here we're speaking about the situation where you do this in a group, right? Mm-hmm. So you have this confluence of thought, people throwing in different ideas. And by this landscape changes. It might surprise you at the very end what you'll arrive at. But yes, tool allows for this, for the group work, for joining those ideas, and for creating this landscape that is kind of like a metaphor, a visual metaphor, just putting out the information in a very appealing form for others to use when it's ready.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it's actually something that is quite similar to the third visual tool that we wanted to mention, that is called knowledge maps, that are drawings that are used to assist a reflection on a topic where you want to take this new knowledge, they call it unstable knowledge, a tacit knowledge, and make it more concrete, turn it into a visual. And this is also, it's usually a process that involves two steps. First one is creating this foundation that is a grounding layer. In this very example here, the layer that is a ground for exploring topic is actually a map of a subway, one could say, but it's actually example of the project planning. So the metaphor of the subway was used as a graphical context for planning, project planning, where you put on different individual elements when discussing the planning of the project. And there's this nice illustration, detailed illustration of the outcome, so you can see how it looks like when you zoom in. We took this example from, again, a very interesting publication, The New Directions in Cognitive Information Retrieval, that is full of examples. This very example of knowledge map comes from the chapter Knowledge Visualization Towards a New Discipline and its Field of Application.
Right, because that was a study that was in this whole book, right?
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
Correct. By this, we're showing you that if you want to create knowledge maps, it's more difficult than thinking inside of the box, because you have to do those two steps: create a visual metaphor, create the foundation, that is the structure for the information that you put in. Yet you can do it similarly as we illustrated with this simple example of clustering, just two circles or few sets here on this right side, and you have this foundation. With this knowledge map, it's much more elaborate because it has a look of a subway map, which is like, well grounded in the culture, so many people will understand this. But you have to do this first step, create a foundation, and on top of this foundation, you can create new visual elements or textual elements when facilitating a discussion. With Explain Everything, you can actually facilitate this discussion within the whiteboard when creating this ground and when creating those information elements on top of this foundation.
Right. So it's a similar thing, right? This is the arriving point, and Explain Everything helps you get there, right?
Correct.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So those are the two categories of the visual tools you can use when working with Explain Everything. So just to share a bit of the context, we understand that sometimes when you start your exercise and your work and you start with a blank canvas, it's kind of sometimes intimidating, right? Mm-hmm. We want to improve that by showing you both examples, what kind of structure you can use, like here or here, but it also will work on templates that will make your life easier in the future.
Yep. There are good things coming. I mean, great examples are on their way to Explain Everything. So we're happy to tell you that you can expect more examples and more templates that are coming in the near future and Explain Everything, so that you can explore for yourself a little bit more and download those templates. Yeah.
But we very much believe that this visual nature of communication, enhancing your communication with visuals, such as on this very example that we shared, are actually very powerful tools, and that's why we see Explain Everything as being the tool that is positioned for the job. It's more of a question of the skills, how to use this for particular task And this is something we're happy to explore with you and answer your questions. If you have any, how to use Explain Everything for the exercise, for the workshop, for the presentation that you want to create.
Right. So because we know that this time we went a little bit high level in terms of the applications of Explain Everything and why we bother, right?
Yeah.
Because it kind of fascinates us in terms of what actually is going on when you try and move things that you would like draw only previously, right? So it will kind of, the setup for all these activities, all the interactivity before wasn't really possible. Right now we would have to, you know, I don't really know, but well, it required a lot of preparation. With Explain Everything, it's very handy, very easy, and it kind of does things to you where you explore and see how those things unfold before you that weren't possible before. So
well, I would say that before you had to use tools that already had structure in place. So even word processor has the structure of the page, and you have those limits of the page. There are limit number of possibilities to position content on the page. And with this kind of tool, it's opening the future for you where you have, and there is no limit how you want to position the contents on the space and use them during exploration of the concepts. And we believe this is the beginning of something that is quite profound. This is the future. That's why we're happy to open the year with this webinar, because we might not yet understand how deep it goes in terms of comprehension of the topic. As we showed you those examples, they go back to, like, say, 150 years back, right? There are many visual techniques that are shared now in books like The Knowledge is Beautiful. I don't know if you've heard about that book.
No.
It's a fascinating work of an Englishman that tried to explore complex data sets, but in a visual way. So he used diagrams in order to illustrate the patterns within data, and we'll also share a link with you. This is an exploration that just begins with those kind of tools. This is something that starts to be possible when you're communicating, when you're teaching, when you're learning, and that's, I guess, is fascinating.
Yeah. That's just the first stepping, or the first step, actually, right in the beginning. Where you want to go about this. Yes. I mean, we would have to ask him how he did that, but yeah, I assume he had to start somewhere. Just gathering data and making them visual is a task in itself, right? So
it is. Yet we can observe the results of that, and they are fascinating in his books. The title is Knowledge is Beautiful, and I encourage you to have a quick look into that. It's quite interesting.
All right.
In the following webinars, we're going to dive deeper into specifics, into how to facilitate discussion, how to present, how to use this or that visual tool. So this is coming. We hope that we open this year with the quite broad but yet interesting introduction to why visuals, how to enhance communication. If there are questions, we're happy to answer them.
There aren't currently, so I guess that was all clear. But yeah, we didn't really dive deep this time into specific of how Explain Everything works. We wanted to start with a broad idea behind why and how you can do that. Well, more examples are coming. Oh, there's a hand raised. Hi, Leonard. Nice to see you again. Oh, that was that intended? Yeah, I guess so. So if you have a question, then feel free to ask in the chat or using the Q&A section of Zoom. So, and if not, we'll slowly wrap it up. So yeah,
you can think about if there's a direction that you want us to explore, we're happy to put some thought into it. Just share the direction with us. Because as we mentioned at the very beginning, there are so many ways to speak about explain everything and results you can arrive at with such a broad tool that it's nearly impossible to cover that. Even those 30 webinars that we ran last year.
Oh yeah. I mean, please don't get intimidated by that. It's not that. It's more of what you want to do with it, right? Yeah. And we are here to just show you the examples. And because there are so many people using explain everything in so many ways that we couldn't imagine. There are so many inspiring people and teachers, students that do all sorts of different activities that we are inspired by. So that's crazy. There's a question from Leonard. So how did you duplicate the items? So there are three ways actually. Yeah.
We want to have more of Kuba, so let me cut Kuba out of this picture.
So this is the cutout tool. It actually duplicates, not cuts out. So we might rename it in the future, but that's the cutout tool that you can use. It comes with 3 different options.
Yes.
So the one Bart uses is a free form. There is the one that's the rectangular selection. So you can select a rectangle like that and duplicate the thing. And then there's a very precise thing. It was necessary for precise cutouts when you use your finger. If you have a stylus, you don't really use that one. But if you use your finger for cutting out, it's very handy. So that's the one.
And now the application.
So now we can show you the inspector tools for duplication. So there's just the duplicate button under the edit tab, right
just
there.
Here.
So you just press that and it creates a copy of a selected object. If you select a group, it will duplicate the whole group. And you can do that as many times as you want. Oh, there's so much. Yeah.
Yes.
And you can also, if you want to duplicate and send one object to another slide, you can do that by copying and pasting. Just adds you with.
Oh, yeah.
So that's the third.
You can copy.
And then just paste. And there we go. It works the same way.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there are 3 ways of duplicating things in objects, and explain everything. If you want to duplicate your slides, you can do that in the slides order. We are using currently just one slide, but there's an option of duplicating that. Or you can copy everything. that would be crazy, but yeah.
But there's a reason for using white slide. We like to explore this giant canvas. That's why we're not using slide division. That would be old way.
That would be all way. Yeah.
It's sometimes good.
Oh yeah, when you want to make an impression and then something jumps out and you present a different thing, then yeah. You want to have we use slides when we want to have a different background, for example, or a different theme.
Yes.
That's how we actually explain everything. Slides are more of a scenes. We think of them as scenes most often. So it's because when you are recording, which we didn't talk about on this webinar, but when you're recording, each slide has a separate recording, has a separate timeline, separate recording. That's why it's more of a scene than a slide. But yeah, we named them slides because that's more familiar, I guess. But you don't have to use them. You can just stick to one slide and it's all fine.
And Leonard, on next webinars, will be more practically showing tools and techniques in Explain Everything. So we encourage you to sign up for next webinars. We'll be putting new ones to the scheduler soon.
Yep.
So if you're on our mailing list, you'll be noticed. If not, just check our website.
Yeah,
it's all there.
If you're not in our newsletter, then feel free to sign up. And yeah, we'll send you a recording of this video I'm not sure if we will have the schedule ready by then, but yeah, we'll inform you when we are.
And we wish you a very visual and great new year. Hope you'll be satisfied with Explain Everything, and we'll do our best that you are. So let's keep in touch. And if you have any directions for us to explore, any ideas you want us to expand on, please don't hesitate to share them with us.
Yep. Thank you very much all for coming. It was a pleasure. and see you on the next webinar.
See you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Nice. Oh,